Yo, what's going on, man? Welcome. This is the Lions Den Podcast, episode 3. Man, I am super excited today. As you can see, I'm laid back. So this is going to be a really good laid back conversation. But I can't wait to hear some stuff because the guy that I'm sitting here with is a book of knowledge, man. A book of wisdom. And you know how when somebody give you a compliment and you laugh at it because you know, like, yeah, it's real. He real deal. Every time I've spoken with him, I've always left the conversation pondering, like, dang. You know, the conversation always take my thought process to a different place. So I'm excited to really have this conversation, and also because I know his story of deliverance and just getting to the place where he's at today. I know for a fact it's really going to be impactful. We're going to actually start this podcast off today with a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this thank you for the Lions Den podcast, for allowing me to have enough courage to want to step outside my comfort zone and create a platform for your saints, your believers, your soldiers to have a platform to speak about the things that they have overcome because of you, so that other people that is in a current situation about the topics we're talking about and that they can have hope, that they can have a sense of where a trajectory of where I'm at with my own deliverance. You know, am I far off or am I spot on? I thank you for that, Yahweh, because a lot of times when I was going through deliverance with things, I didn't know if I was on the right path to it or not. So to hear a conversation about another person that made it and hearing their process and some of the things that they went through, it allowed me to gauge where I was at. So thank you for all of the people that comes to this platform and that has the bravery to share their stories too and be transparent and vulnerable with your people, because this platform is about saving, it's about helping, it's about overcoming, it's about aiding the people from the things that we've learned through our relationship with you. So I say thank you for that. So let Freddie speak with boldness, with confidence, with conviction, with transparency, with honesty, with truth. And man, we're gonna have some fun up here. So I say thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for what you're going to do. And thank you for what you have already done in our lives and the lives of the viewers. And I know that if it is meant for this podcast to blow the city of Gainesville out the water, then that's what it's going to do. In your son, Yeshua, I pray, I say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Who are you?
Who am I? So, my name's Freddie. Originally born Miami, Florida. Shout out 305.
305.
Dade County. Single parent household. My mom, more specifically, so single mom. I have an older sister. I have a father. I never met my father. I have been told that I have siblings on my father's side, but you know, I don't know anything about them. I do. My mom did tell me that I had 2 siblings that were older than me on my dad's side, and had a sibling that was younger than me.
Okay. So 3 plus your sister 4.
Yeah.
So 4 siblings.
4 siblings.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess I'm the middle one. If you think about all of them, I'm in the middle somewhere. But
Gotcha.
I remember the first time I had found that out, and I was like, so my sister's, her nickname is Alex, because her middle name is Alexandria. Hopefully she don't get mad at me that I say this. So I was like, I remember telling my mom, was like, so Alex is my half sister? And she was like, no, don't you ever say that? I'm not your half sister. But I was like, but we have different that. But you know, you don't think I didn't think there was any difference.
Yeah.
until that difference was made obvious. And I think that's like a trend throughout my whole life.
Wow.
A lot of things, I mean, probably everybody can agree with that, but I know the really big moments in my life was always somehow, some way, something being like called out and me being like,
That's cool. In a way, somehow
Okay.
things being called out. It's almost as if it reminds me of the saying that say, "What's done in the dark must come to the light."
Okay.
Because basically it was stuff that you was unknown, like you was unaware about.
Absolutely.
You know, and so you became aware about those things.
Yeah.
I think the first thing you said was you grew up in a single parent home.
Yeah.
And not knowing your father, same thing with me. I knew my dad. I hung out with him a couple times, but it wasn't. It's not like the relationship I had with my daughter.
Right.
Being 30 years old, now I understand and I can see the effects of not having that.
Yeah.
But during the ages of like 7, 8, 9, I knew he wasn't around, but after a while it just becomes like normal. Until you get older, your brain process like, oh, because of that, like that's what's wrong with me now. Because so what did it feel normal for you to not know your father, to not any of that stuff, like for him to just not be present?
Yes. I didn't think much about it at all. So I was at like a family event, like a birthday party or something. I just remember I was in the backyard and I was talking to an older cousin of mine, and that cousin was the one that kind of like revealed to me that I had a father. And I guess you never really think, I guess, as a child, like, because I had family around. Like I had my mom, I had my sister, and I also had an aunt and cousins that were in Miami. So I had family spread out through all the U.S., but I had community in Miami, so I didn't really think much about it. And I had an uncle as well. So I want to make sure I put that out there. So I was at that party, and my cousin just brought it up. And the way that she brought it up, she was kind of like making fun of my dad, because she was like, it's like, when somebody brings something up, it's like now more memories of the person or the thing comes out. So she was talking about him, and then she started saying like, yeah, and he got this accent, and he talked funny, and he's short, and I was like, like I just started like taking it all in, and it never fails. Anytime I was giving information, the first thing I did after, I was going straight to my mama. Like later that night, I was calling to my mom. I probably was like maybe 8. I'm gonna say like between 8 and 10. I don't know specifically, but around 8 or 10 is when I really came to my mind. Like when that was brought to my attention that I didn't have a father, and I went to my mom and I started asking her like about him, because my cousin brought him up. Like I'm like, what does she mean as an accent? Like what type of accent? So I started asking questions, and that's when I found out like, oh, he's Hispanic, and I'm like, he Hispanic? What? So I'm like, what is this? And then I'm like, is this his name? And at first my mom was kind of annoyed. It seemed like she was a little annoyed by the questions. I don't think it was because I was asking questions, but I think it was her not having control, I guess, as a parent on how I was given the information. I think that what bothered her the most, because it wasn't coming from her, and it wasn't packaged a certain way. Yeah. So I just came and I started like, I was like, I've always been curious, so I was just like, how did y'all meet? Why did y'all not together anymore? Like I was excited and asking 100%. So many questions. My mom was just like she would answer, but kind of, I could tell like stop asking questions, so I stopped asking questions. And I just had phases throughout like I like this term, so in sociology it's called life course. So in my life course, I just had different moments where I would start searching for my dad, asking questions. So around that age, between like I was saying 8 or 10, And then, like 8th, 9th grade-ish, I had a moment. Then senior year, I had a moment. And then college, I had a moment. So there was different moments where each time frame in my life where I would find out more information, look and try to, like I was searching for him. Like I was looking up addresses. And I remember the first time I saw his face, it was in high school, because I got his name. And when I got his name, I searched, like I was interning at a law firm at the time. So I was in the clerk's office. I was just, every database that I could think of that I know is public record, I was in that database searching. Like I wanted to know who he was. And I remember I found out who he, I saw his face and I found out from a mugshot. And I was like, oh, he's a criminal. Like, I was so judged. Like, I'm this judgmental kid, and I'm also like a straight A student, doing nothing wrong. I'm like, a criminal. He has a mugshot. I was looking at his charge, and I was like, ooh. That made me feel really bad because of my own, like, experience with molestation as a child. And I remember, like, I kind of, like, shut the book and looking. Like, in that moment, I stopped. And then years later, I had another moment and I started back. But there was just different periods of time where I was just, searching for answers, trying to understand who I was and also trying to understand who he is. Because I'm like, okay, I'm black, but I'm not black. I mean, I'm African American, but I'm not fully. But I also don't know anything about this culture. I don't know the language. I'm of it because of blood, but I know nothing about it, so I can't identify with it.
100%.
So I was like, that was always something that I wrestled with, like a lot of things, identity period, like sexuality, cultural identity. I was always bringing up questions about who am I, what makes me me, and never really, I guess I would say, like, never really feeling complete in my search for it.
Gotcha. So, in that search of identity, because you talked about sexual identity, cultural identity, what was the start of, like, something off or something just not fully there? I don't have all the information. When did that search start, and what brought that search about?
About, like, my identity?
Yeah, just identity.
I think throughout my entire childhood, I always felt odd. I always felt like that person, like, I would explain myself as someone, I wasn't the popular kid, but I was known, if that makes sense. Like, I was a smart kid. I always did things to challenge myself academically, whether it was debate or mock trial or student government. Like, I was always pushing myself into these, and it's weird because I like to be in the back, but I always felt compelled to push myself to the front, and I was just drawn to do things that made me have to speak up and say things. And in reference to your question, I just had, like, I remember growing up, elementary school, like, I was always bullied, picked on. Like, if I was fat, it was like, oh, he's gay, or why he talk like that? Like I went to a lot of like ghetto schools, or I guess the professional way of me saying that, because I don't want to get you in trouble. Low socioeconomic schools. That doesn't mean that we didn't do well or that there weren't magnet programs, but just the neighborhoods. And so, you're in these schools, so it was like, I remember sometimes I was told, like, why you talk like a white boy? And I'm like, what? Like, what does that mean? Like, why you talk like this? And I'm like, I was always questioning, why do I talk like this? Why does he sound like that? Why don't I have a daddy? Like, all of these things, I couldn't fit in with the guys. And then it's like, if I hung out with the girls, why he with the girls? So I always was like, well, what? I just stayed to myself. And I mean, of course I had friends, but I never felt like I belonged. And I think that thread has carried itself throughout, like from childhood to high school to college. So I was always questioning who I am, what I'm doing. I did know, this is something I did not question. I knew that I wanted to make money. I knew that I wanted, like, I did not want to be poor. I did not want to be on Section 8. I didn't, shout out to everybody that's using it the right way and doing what they got to do, because I respect you and I love you for doing that. Use it as a milestone, because that's what it is to move you forward. But I didn't want my kids, like, I always wanted, even though I struggled with sexuality in the past, I still want a wife and I wanted kids. I wanted a lot of kids. I was like, I want 4 kids. And I never want my kids to like come home to the lights being turned off, or not having water, dealing with roaches and all these things that you deal with. Like when you're just in like a poor, I don't like the word poor, I'm gonna just say low socioeconomic place. Like those barriers that you have to deal with, I didn't want that for myself. And I did not want that for my future family. So my thing was like, listen, I may be questioning my identity, I may not fit in, but one thing what's going to happen for me is I'm going to make money, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to be out of, this state.
That's good, bro. That's good. So during these times of just being, not feeling like you belong to the left or the right, did you have either a friend, a family member, a classmate? Did you have somebody that was kind of like your reinsurer? Like, oh man, you this or you that, or like somebody that always spoke positive into you, whether it was a classmate, a friend, a family member, that made you feel more secure about, I actually do belong, I actually do fit? Or was it, that wasn't, that didn't exist for you?
That's a good question. Like, I would say growing up, I had, so in these different phases, because so I was saying, when I was younger, like elementary, middle school, I had friends, but I don't think I had friends where like they were speaking life into me. You're kind of like a kid. Mm-hmm. We're all kind of kids. I think the only person that was reassuring to me was my mom about things. But even as a child, there were some things that I wasn't expressing, that I wasn't letting out. And I was a really angry child too. So I did well academically, mm-hmm. but I was like, I remember I had knives in my room. I was mm-hmm. just such an angry kid. And it's like I always was trying to prove a point. Like even in middle school, high school, like if I felt like somebody was trying me or trying to like get one over on me, I was like, what's up? Like, I just was like on go. And it's just like, bro, when I think about it, I'm like, geez, calm down. But I was just like jumping over tables at one point. I would like, as soon as I felt like this was gonna go there, I took it there. Like, I was just that person when they be like, what's up? I'm like running towards you. Yeah. That's just how I was. And it's crazy that I would think like, why are you doing these things? But I know now that it was just me trying to, because I didn't fit in and because I didn't feel like I belonged. I was trying to like prove something to other people. Don't mess with me, but it was more so like me trying to prove something to myself. But I didn't realize that, of course, as a child growing up, I didn't realize those things.
Yeah. Wow. That's funny. Okay. Your story. Let's get into a little bit of your story. Your story of your story of your biggest challenge that you've had to face from childhood to adulthood, and how did that story start transforming into a story of deliverance? Because I'm pretty sure at first it wasn't a story of deliverance. Mm-hmm. Because I know you found God in that process, and a lot of stuff happened. So like, start walking us through that story of how you got to a delivered state. Yeah.
So many things. Well, I mean, to actually give note of this, like I found Christ like in like middle school, high school.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't have any discipleship, so I really didn't know what I was doing. But if I were to fast forward towards like deliverance, you know, in terms of what you're saying, when I really surrendered, my biggest challenge, I mean, was same-sex attraction. I think that was the biggest thing for me. I think between that and anger, like once I started to forgive my father for what he didn't do, and when I started to forgive my mom for what I felt like she should have done, I think my anger started to subside. And I think when it comes to same-sex attraction, for that I think that's been the biggest challenge, because it's something that, like, I think the world, when you're in the church community, and it's almost like sometimes the church acts like the world when you are someone that speaks about like same-sex attraction or deliverance of same-sex attraction. So like, it's the moment I make an utterance towards that thing, it's like, it's a gay boy. It's like, no. Like, I wasn't even like wild. I was I just had these attraction. I had this attraction. I wasn't like actively acting out on them. But nobody cares about that. It's like the moment you say that, it's like you're stamped. This like, I don't want to say it just, but you know, all the crazy, mean, hateful things that really tear a lot of people down, whether they're believers or not. It tears them down. It doesn't make them want to like even get to know Christ. And so when you talk about that, right, and it wasn't just really same-sex attraction for me, that when it comes to deliverance, like God was also delivering me from people pleasing. God was delivering me from like struggling with just who I am, like allowing me to understand what sonship means with him. Because like leading up to my deliverance, there were already so many things that I was attached to, people that I was in relationship with, even just platonic relationships with, that God was like, okay, you need to X that out, X this person out, let go of this organization, let go of that organization. I'm gonna need you to throw this stuff away, like in its pieces, you know. And I started to kind of understand it, but it wasn't really just on me. I think I for some reason, I knew that I wanted to be something. It was still there. These affections and attractions were still there, and I'm like, but God, like, when would this leave? When would this go away? This is in your word that this is not of you. Why do I have to deal with this? Why is it still here? Like, do something with this. Like, I'm tired of talking to you about this thing. And he did. Like, because I found myself watching videos about deliverance, and like you know, when people be casting stuff, I was just like writing stuff down about deliverance ministries. And I remember praying a prayer, and I started renouncing I started to renounce same-sex attraction and affections, and I started renouncing lust and idolatry and love of money. Like, I just asked the Holy Spirit. I said, Holy Spirit, guide me in this prayer, you know, of what you know lies within my heart, and help me to renounce those things, because I knew that I wasn't fully aware. And I still keep that mindset in prayer now, as I'll ask the Holy Spirit as my comforter and as our guide, and to kind of to steer my words, right, and shut my mouth where it needs to be shut in that moment. I remember I was roommating at the time, and I was in my room, and I was watching a video, and I started renouncing things and, you know, talking, and it wasn't nothing dramatic. Like, I wasn't foaming at the mouth, or like, that's what I was expecting. I was like, oh, I'm about to you know, this is going to be intense. So because those things didn't happen, I didn't work. But when I realized the reason why I knew that it worked, because I have, you know, a friend, more so like family. I know that God really placed in my life for her to come in and just like, came in like a force, because she was someone that I did not expect didn't know them. It's not someone that I would like, I guess, normally go over to and start talking to. So when she just started saying things to me, like I would be out, we also have, we worked together, and she would just come and just tell me things about myself that either God told her to tell me, right, or things that she just kind of knew, or God was probably giving her discernment on about me, but they were true. Or anything that I told nobody about, and because I didn't know her, I was like, ooh, and it hurt. Like everything she said hurt. Like everything she said was making me mad. I was getting pissed off. But after the anger subsides, I knew that it was true, and I was like, oh. And then that's really, I think, where it got real deal. And I remember like her being just in my ear and saying, you know what, Freddie? She's like, these things are happening because there's a prayer that you're praying, and God is acting on that prayer. So it's up to you to either walk it out or not. And if you're not going to walk it out, then stop praying those prayers. And I said, who do you think, that's in my head, like, who do you think you're talking to? But realistically, she was dead on. And as soon as she said that, slowly but surely, I started cutting ties. The moment I said yes, the moment that I said, okay, I'm gonna do this, God, I start cutting ties. Then it was like a chain reaction. Like some stuff happened at the place that I was staying, with roommating. But that same day that I found out that I had to leave was the same day that the place that I'm currently staying in came available. And the same person that God orchestrated to come into my life and just start cutting me with truth had the connection to the landlord of the place that I'm staying now. Because the same time that I'm getting a text from my previous landlord that you gotta go, I go and I'm talking, and she's like, oh, you won't believe this. My land, who I know is telling me that this place is coming available. And at first, I was like, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. If I give everything I got, because I would literally I had to give out everything. Like the first and last, everything that they needed was gonna be my whole account. And I remember her saying, Freddie, again, she's like, either you're gonna stop praying the prayer, or you're gonna do it. And I did it. I took out all because it was a max of what I could take out, but within about 2 days, I took out everything. The first day I took it out, gave it to them, they gave me a receipt back. This was the remainder. The second day I took it out, gave them a receipt back. Oh, you can move in. I was like, can I move in early? I was trying to, hurry move in, but I'm like, wait, don't rush it because they don't think you're trying to run. And they like, because it was in a different city, it's a country town. They're like, why are you trying to move? This city person trying to move, what's going on? So I was like, okay. And then I just started moving stuff. I started moving things to that friend's house. Just pretty much preparing myself for what was about to take place. Yeah. And then as when I officially moved to the new city, that's when I cut all ties. Everything that I was doing that helped me make more money, all of the connections that I had, all of the resources that I had, everything that I was tied to, that would lead me back into bondage, whether that would be same-sex attraction, idolatry, love of money, really idolizing perspectives, idolizing men, because something I really wanted, because I didn't have a father, was guidance from a male figure. And I really idolized that over the voice of God. And so I just cut ties with everything and anyone that connected me back to those things God was delivering me from. And it was really the way that I saw it was God moved me out of the city, it's a totally different city, because it was literally if you go back, you're choosing to go back to this thing. Yeah. Right? You just got this car. You just got this car. So that was another reason why I was nervous about giving my money for this new place. I'm like, I got no money. Yeah. But I gave it. So he's like, got this car in May, you got this new place in June to start in 1st July, you done made this decision. Either you gonna stick with me or you not. And I stuck beside him. Anything, I didn't have the money to move, so I was charging them credit cards up. Yeah. Like and that's something that's not something that I would have done. That's not something that Freddie would have done if it wasn't for God delivering my mindset. Because it's so much more than just same-sex attraction. Yeah. It's just God freeing us from everything that keeps us away from Him and truly having a relationship and to rely on Him. And that's really where I started to be like, just so many, that whole thing, like that's not, I'm very pragmatic. Like I try to be pragmatic, like A plus B equals C. If you don't got enough money, it ain't making no sense. But with God, when you say yes to God, another thing that He has you to move towards is going to make sense. And I realize that now, but then I didn't know that. But because I believe that I could feel it, but because I had someone in my corner who had already walked through deliverance, was mature, right, in their walk with Christ, more mature than I was, at least in that level. They helped, steer me a course and help me keep my blinders focused. Help me keep focused on the Lord, because I was definitely doing things I wouldn't have done, because that didn't make no sense to me. It's freeing for me because I know what I gained from it. Like it's nothing natural about it. It was a supernatural experience that I had with God, and it's something that I'm like, okay, God. I told God, I'm like, okay, you know how to charge my account. You know I don't got no money, so I'm gonna need you to, do something about this, later on. But I just started to believe, like, okay, you will take care of those things when the time comes. So as long as I'm giving you my yes and I'm moving forward, really that's all that matters. But it was a step-by-step thing. It was a daily thing. Like I remember you were talking on church not too long ago about like picking up your cross daily, like denying yourself and picking up your cross if you're gonna follow. And that's a literal representation of that, because my flesh was, let me go back to the people, places, and things that serve me. Like, let me go back to the comfort. Let me go back to the resources and the connections and the budgeting, all these things that I held high and helped what I believe was exalting me and helping me become better. Let me go back to those things. It goes back to those people, go have those same perspectives and ideas. I didn't go back, that's what my flesh wanted. But picking up my cross was saying, okay, we're going to just take this day by day. We're going to take this day by day. We're going to take, you're not having no money day by day. You're going to take, you having your card, your credit card charged up. But boy, when I tell you I was the happiest person sleeping on the floor, I was like, I never felt like the peace that I had. I never had. I remember I lived closer to a lake, so I had walked to the lake one day, and I was just like, God, I've never felt like this. I've never ever felt like this. Like, I remember walking, I'm like, ooh, I'm tired, but I'm not depressed. And I feel like all my life I've been the person that I've always been running. I've always been moving. I've always been hustling. I've always been grinding, but I've been depressed. I've been mature. I've had wise things to say. I've encouraged people, but I've never been like with peace with myself, and never really being. It's kind of like it's a hard thing to explain. Like I just know that I never felt that way before until that moment where I'm like, oh, this is what living life maybe really feels like to be tired and to not feel drained. To be tired and to not look your reflection and hate yourself at the same time, like to be drained and feel like, oh, like I'm still good, like I got this, like I'm not too bad, like I didn't even know I needed deliverance. Like I was saved in high school.
Yeah,
I thought all of that stuff happened, but I realized, years 5-6 years later, like oh no, like. Because of your lack of knowledge, some things you didn't know, even though you were saved, there were still people and things you were still attracting and being attracted to familiar spirits, or all those things that. But I mean, you can't turn those things. I can't go back and change that. But I'm grateful that I have the experience that I do have, because I can speak to that and I can see it and understand it now. And also see it in other people's lives and kind of intervene beforehand to let them know, like, hey, when you get saved, go through deliverance. Start renouncing. Just have that intimate conversation with the Lord. Whether it's in church, whether it's in your room, whether it's in the bathroom, go through that deliverance process. Save yourself some time and some trouble and some hurt and some frustration and some brokenness.